So now that the cooling system's all up to scratch on my Nissan 4x4, and obviously with my Super Beetle the cooling system all in it is less than 5 years old, that just leaves my green goober. And the cooling system on it is definitely worthy of attention at the moment. Reason for that being, I have owned this car for over 5 years now. No, over 6 years. And in that time I have not done a thing to the cooling system in it. Coolant needs to be regularly changed because over time it starts to degrade and the inhibitors stop doing their job. Some people will know already what happened to the first Subaru motor I had in my Super Beetle. It was completely destroyed internally through lack of coolant changes because all the metal was eaten out by electrolysis, so the engine was a complete paperweight. And I don't really want that to happen to this one. So coolant's generally changed about every 2 or so years, or it is mileage dependent too, but in the more than 6 years I've owned this car, I've actually only put about 75,000 kilometres on it. The cooling system is actually working still perfectly fine. It's still the middle of summer here in Australia and it's been regularly getting up to 40 degrees Celsius, which is around 100 Fahrenheit from memory. And it's staying nice and cool, but it is starting to develop a leak around the thermostat housing. And I just want to change it before I end up with another paperweight engine. So first thing I'll do is get it out of the shed so I can drain it. So as well as flushing the coolant and replacing the thermostat housing seal, one of the other things I'm going to do is clean up the radiator and condenser. Living out here in the country and doing a lot of night driving, the air conditioning condenser and I imagine the radiator too are just caked full of bugs and dirt. So what I'm going to actually do is pull the whole radiator out to give it a wash, and I can't remove the condenser without degassing the AC system, so I'll just wash that one in the car. There's another job I've got to do. So replace the rocker cover gasket. So a thing you'll notice with a lot of Japanese cars like this is the temperature gauges in them. The needle, once the car's warmed up, doesn't usually tend to move. It'll always sit in the one spot. It's a really common thing in Subarus and Mazdas. And what it is the temperature gauges basically have a static zone. And what that means is the needle will not move between two certain temps. Not sure what it is with this car, but I know with Subarus, like the one in my Volkswagen, it is between 80 and 110 degrees. The needle will not move. And the reason for that is it just stops the needle going up and down all the time as the fans cut in or the load on the engine changes, that sort of thing, just to stop people worrying. I know my father's Peugeot doesn't have that feature and the needle moves up and down like a yo-yo, which if you don't sort of notice, it doesn't matter, but a lot of people tend to worry at the slightest little thing. It's a good thing to stop people worrying, but it's a pain in the ass for people like me who are a bit more in tune with what's going on, because by the time the temperature gets to 110 degrees and starts coming up, you haven't got much time to get the car shut down before you can really start to do some damage. Just another little quirk that Mazdas and Subarus have, and possibly other Japanese Neuro cars that might throw people off is the thermostat placement. On most cars, normally the thermostat would be on the top hose, blocking the coolant from getting into the radiator, keeping it in the engine. Whereas with this setup, it's actually on the other end, stopping the engine sucking it back in from the radiator. Both have their pros and cons. But yeah, that's why it is down there instead of up the top here. So with that cold air intake off, we can see what's going on a little bit better here. See, there's my thermostat housing in there, which has been all weepy around there, and it runs down that hose and drips onto the plastic rock guard down there. It's all pretty wet. So I've got to pop that lower hose off. I think this, yeah, it does have a drain tap down there, but I don't use them because they tend to often leak when you do them back up. So popping off the lower hose just next to it there has the same effect, and I'm removing the radiator anyway, so that and the top hose will pop off. And all I got to do is unplug the two fans and remove these top brackets. So there's the radiator out, got the two fans pulled off it, and I'm quite surprised at how clean the radiator is. Really, it's nothing more than a few Father Christmases and a couple of snuck through beetles that have got through the condenser. But I'll give it a good flush out. It's all quite nice and clean down inside. Yeah, there's the drain tap there. Handy because you just put a hose on that little spigot and open it, but from my experience with old radiators, they never seal properly again when you remove them. So there's that. And as I said, with the condenser, unfortunately, it has got a flexible hose that goes from the condenser through a bit of hard line across to the compressor, but unfortunately the other end, no such luck. Got a rigid line out into the dryer there, so can't move it from the car, but I've got ample room there to give it a good clean out with the hose. But first I'll blow all the dry stuff out with compressed air. Another overlooked area when people do coolant changes is the overflow bottle. These can usually get pretty scummy looking inside. I've done coolant changes on cars before where you'd swear they were full of muddy river water, but most cars now, they're just designed to slide out like that, and it's decided to drain itself. But I'm sure there's probably a bit of murky shit in the bottom. Yeah, reasonably clean, but I'll still give that a good flush out. What I used to do with cars that had very dirty ones inside, you get a sort of a brown sludgy build up on the walls, and the best way I've found to clean those out is to fill it up with either a bunch of nuts, bolts and washers or coarse gravel. And I used to just put something harsh like terps or metho or some sort of degreasant in there and give it a really good slosh around. That usually scrapes all the crap out of it and cleans it up pretty good. So I've got my condenser and radiator all cleaned up. They cleaned up well. That one's all nice and clean. And I gave the radiator a flush too. Good idea to reverse flush it first, so you'd put the hose in the bottom first and flush it, and I was quite surprised how much crap came out of it actually. A lot of white powdery shit build up sort of like that there. So next thing I'm going to do is pull that housing off. There's just 2 bolts holding that on, and replace that thermostat seal. So there's the thermostat housing off. It's just got those 2 bolts, and see the thermostat is still in there. It's just the seal holding it in, and that rubber seal is what I'm replacing. There's my new one there. And there's that off. The old seal, you can see, is pretty nasty. It's rock hard, which is what was keeping the thermostat stuck in there. All nice and clean inside. It's just around the outsides where it reacts with oxygen that you get this shitty white build-up. So before I put the thermostat and new seal back in, while it's open like that, I'm going to give the engine and heater a flush, because that thermostat will block the flow, and the coolant's just going to back up out the same way you're going in. So while it's out is the best time to flush it. Now, I'm a skeptic of those coolant system flushes and that. I've tried them before and don't believe they do anything. So before it's flushed out, because of the heater system, a lot of cars have an on-off valve or tap on the heater system, so when you're not using the heater it doesn't send hot coolant to it. So on cars like that you have to put the heater control in the hot position so the tap's right open so that it flushes the coolant out of the heater core as well. With a lot of Japanese cars like this, the heater core doesn't actually have a tap on it. The hot coolant is flowing through it all the time. It just, diverts the air around it when you're not using the heater. So I've got my tripod out so you don't have to put up with my shaky camera work. So the best way to flush the engine out is in the reverse direction the coolant normally travels, and coolant always comes out through the top of the engine block. So this hose just here is where it's coming out of the engine into the radiator. So I'll be feeding the hose in this, and it will be coming out down the bottom there where the thermostat normally sits. So I'll just focus the camera on and we'll see if any nice yucky garbage comes out. Nice green coolant so far, always a good sign. And now we're down to clear water. Most of the coolant would have drained out when I took the thermostat out. So that's been flushing for a little while now. Just running nice and clear, so I think I'll leave it at that. Just let all the water drain out. That's another reason why I've parked the car with the arse up in the air, just to help it drain a bit better. Rightio, so I've got the new seal on the thermostat. Got the flange down there all nice and clean. This one nice and clean too. I should by rights replace the thermostat housing. There is a little bit of pitting on it there, but it's not right through, and the hose will still seal down low. So putting this back in with a thermostat that sits on its side like this one, you always want the little rattle pin here to be right at the top at 12 o'clock. That's just to let any air trapped in there is going to be at the highest point, and that's going to let that out. So it's all back together now, well, all except for the grill, but I'll put that back in later. So all I've got to do is fill it up with coolant, just Make sure I got no leaks anywhere. Rightio, all full of green stuff. No leaks. Should be good to go. And that fan's just kicked in. Should only run for about half a minute or so. Doesn't run the second one till it gets hot enough or the air conditioning's on. And there we go. So that's all good.